Hey, church, I just wanted to shoot a short little message here to you. Obviously, in the wake of everything that's been taking place down in Dallas with these shootings and racial tensions around our nation and the way people take to Facebook, I just thought it would be good to just put something out there, especially in the wake of what I experienced this past week. This past week, I sat down and I watched the movie Woodlawn with my kids. And of course, this movie, it's a true story based on the power of the gospel and how it brought about racial reconciliation between sports teams kind of back in the 70s and yeah, I think 70s. And as we were watching it, what was really fascinating to me, I was kind of taken back by it, is I found myself, for all of my younger kids, like my teenagers, they kind of understood the premise, but for all my younger kids, they actually had zero concept of racism. Like, I actually had to explain to them, okay, so there was this thing in which people used to judge one another based on the color of their skin, and my kids literally looked at me with just huge confusion. And I understand that even in Walworth County, we live in a county that's predominantly white, but we also have a pretty large Hispanic population. Just about every time I go to the store, my kids are hearing people speak Spanish. They've got multi-ethnic friends that they hang out with. And so for my kids, literally, they have zero understanding of racism. And they almost didn't have a box to put it in. They're really confused. Like, for the first half of the movie, 45 minutes, hour, they kept turning around asking me, going, okay, so what's going on here? Because they just didn't get it. And here's what it just is so clear, is that how do we respond as a church? It's really simply, it's the gospel. It's always the gospel. It's always the work of the cross. Paul said, to a group of people who, as they gave their lives to Christ, you had multi-ethnic groups giving their lives to Jesus, and he says, here in Christ, there's no Jew or Gentile or slave or free. I mean, it's just like we're all in Christ, and it's just like, whoosh, that's it. And what I've come to realize as well is when we live out the gospel authentically and truthfully in our lives, the natural response is that the following generation, as our kids understand the gospel infiltrated kind of into all areas of life, it will permeate all things in such a way that where sin has had its effect in the past, it literally will be, they'll be like infants, they'll be like children, they'll be unaware. It's like in, I think it's 2 Timothy, where he says, in regards to sin, be infants. And he's saying, I want you to be so unaware, like you're like children, you're completely unaware of the effects of sin upon society because you've got such a kingdom mindset. And so when I think about what's our response, well, it's just keep pressing forward. Keep pressing forward with the gospel into all things, because the gospel has an effect upon society and upon our culture in such a way that literally the effects of sins will seem strange when a kingdom mindset is so present. So obviously pray for our nation. Pray for the gospel to go forward and to have impact into all things, because I really believe that when that happens, well, quite frankly, our world will end up, when they surrender to the cross, the only natural response is to look at the effects of racism and literally go, it doesn't make sense to me. You'll be dumbfounded. And so that's what we honestly pray toward, is toward the gospel to work into people's lives. It has to be that. And then that's the natural outflow, is innocence around sin. So anyhow, just some thoughts about it, but be praying for our nation right now. Blessings to y'all. Have a great week.